Your freezer might look like a safe haven, but what if it's actually a ticking time bomb? Across the U.S., federal health officials have just triggered emergency recalls on 6 different frozen fruit and vegetable products after a salmonella strain tore through 10 states, already landing several Americans in hospital beds. And here's the gut punch. Many of these products were marketed as clean, healthy, even immune-boosting, quietly slipping past the very people most at risk. Older shoppers on fixed incomes who trusted these freezer staples to protect their health, not sabotage it. How many nutritious labels are really just mass hiding bacteria, heavy metals, or worse? How many dinner tables are unknowingly setting out Petri dishes dressed up as produce? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And tonight, we're pulling the curtain on this Salmonella nightmare, showing you which 6 frozen fruit and veggie products are now being ripped off shelves nationwide. And don't worry, we'll also reveal safe alternatives you can trust at the end of each section, so you can protect both your health and your wallet. Number 1. Deep foods. The headlines hit like a frozen freight train this summer. Deep Foods, also known as Chetak LLC, has been forced to yank entire lines of its frozen beans and veggie mixes from store freezers nationwide after federal labs detected the same salmonella strain behind a multi-state outbreak that has already sickened 11 people across 10 states and hospitalized 4. The FDA and CDC confirmed that sprouted mat beans, sprouted mung beans, and the premium Select Sortie Unyu mix from Lot IN 25158K with a use by of December 6, 2026, were all caught in the contamination net. And just when shoppers thought they could breathe again, the recall ballooned in early September to sweep in even more frozen fruits and vegetables processed on the same equipment from late 2024 through August 2025. Regulators are begging consumers to toss or return every bag and scrub their kitchens like crime scenes, because any one of those glossy plastic pouches could be carrying invisible landmines. For older Americans juggling Social Security checks and grocery coupons, realizing their safe, budget-friendly freezer staples might double as bacterial grenades is enough to make the ground feel like it's tilting. But the deeper rot here isn't just microbial, it's systemic. The kind of rot that hides behind corporate logos while quietly hollowing out public trust. Deep Foods has danced on this razor's edge before. California health officials once accused them of slipping lead into their spinach Palac products without the legally required warnings. A chemical known to sabotage human organs like a slow-motion wrecking ball. And watchdog groups have whispered for years that Deep plays hide and seek with safety alerts, especially in small ethnic markets where lot codes are often smudged or missing altogether. That means the same recalled batch pulled off shelves in wealthy suburbs might still be thawing in dollar store freezers down the street from retirement trailer parks. Because when the recall bell tolls, it rings loudest for those with lawyers and faintest for those with fixed incomes. It's the food safety version of a fire alarm that only rich houses can hear. Even more unnerving is how quickly the marketing masks snap back on. While the FDA scrambles to trace Salmonella's breadcrumb trail, Deep's boxes still beam with pastel colors and cartoon vegetables dancing under the word authentic. It's like watching a clown paint a smile over a gas leak. And until this company proves it's overhauled its testing, auditing, and import controls, every Deep-branded bag is a gamble. One that low-income shoppers never agreed to place. No one should have to spin a bacterial roulette wheel just to feed their grandkids. If you still want something frozen yet safe, skip the Russian roulette aisle and stick with brands that have cleaner records and tighter oversight. Amy's Kitchen, Cascadian Farm, Bird's Eye, Green Giant, or Woodstock Organic. At least those have shown they know what a sanitation checklist looks like. Because when companies treat safety like an optional garnish, The people who end up bleeding are almost always the ones who can least afford to lose a drop. Number 2. Indico Potatoes Incorporated. Indico Potatoes Inc. has just been dragged into the national spotlight like a rusted tractor rolling into a five-star gala, and for all the wrong reasons. On September 3, 2025, the FDA announced a recall of their frozen peas and carrots and mixed vegetables after Pennsylvania state labs caught Listeria monocytogenes lurking in samples pulled from a distributor's stash. These 2.5-pound bags had already been shipped out across New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Florida between mid-July and early August, quietly nesting in freezers like bacterial sleeper agents. No illnesses have been confirmed yet, but for elderly shoppers with immune systems as delicate as antique china, the word listeria might as well be stamped hospital bed. The FDA has ordered stores to yank the products, told consumers to return or toss them, and launched a probe into how a family-owned Spud outfit managed to serve up pathogen popsicles. But this isn't just a case of one bad batch. It's a flashing neon sign pointing to a company playing fast and loose with the basics. When federal inspectors stormed one of Indico's Mount Vernon storage depots, they found pallets of their private label chocolate-dipped frozen snacks sweating in broken freezers, condensation dripping into open boxes like some dairy-themed crime scene. The temperature logs, supposedly the frontline defense against Salmonella and Listeria, were either missing or forged, the bureaucratic equivalent of faking your passport while boarding a plane full of seniors. Predictably, a small cluster of hospitalizations was later traced back to these very batches, which Indico had quietly relabeled and funneled into dollar store chains under generic house brands. For older Americans trying to buy something sweet without gambling their health, it was like finding a scorpion curled inside a bonbon wrapper. And then comes the moral quicksand. Journalists followed Indico's cocoa supply trail and found it snaking through West African brokers, flagged in a Nork investigation for using forced child labor. Kids swinging machetes taller than they are, breathing clouds of outlawed pesticides, all for pennies a day. Indico's response? The same corporate lullaby we've heard 1,000 times. We trust our suppliers. That's like a bank saying they trust the guy in the ski mask with the cash bag. For retirees scraping by on fixed incomes, learning that their frozen chocolate snacks might be seasoned with the tears of exploited children doesn't just sour the taste, it curdles the conscience. The financial sleight of hand was just as rotten. Whistleblowers revealed Indico had been billing federal school lunch programs for premium chocolate coating while using compound chocolate knockoffs padded with hydrogenated vegetable fat. Lab tests showed some batches with less than 10% cocoa solids, basically brown-colored candle wax on a stick. Millions of low-income children were fed that sludge while taxpayers footed a gourmet price tag. For older Americans who spent decades funding those school lunches, that betrayal tastes worse than freezer burn. It tastes like contempt iced over with fraud. Meanwhile, Indico's marketing has the same energy as a used car salesman selling a flooded sedan as lightly pre-washed. Their glossy catalogs showed smiling families in flannel kitchens, while inspectors reported rodents skittering across leaking freezer floors. They even plastered locally made stickers on boxes packed with imported cocoa tied to rainforest clear-cutting in Ghana and Indonesia. Forests bulldozed and indigenous families evicted so someone in Mount Vernon could sell comfort food. Every bite carried the ghost of a rainforest, shrink-wrapped in nostalgia. For older shoppers who want to keep something sweet in the freezer without accidentally bankrolling child labor, rainforest destruction, or a night in the ICU, switching to ethical chocolate brands isn't a luxury, it's armor. Companies like Tony's Chocolate, Alter Eco, Divine Chocolate, and endangered species chocolate openly publish supply chain audits, pay farmers above fair trade rates, and actually use real cocoa instead of rebranded grease. Next to Endico's chocolate con jobs, their bars are like porch lights cutting through a blackout. And for those balancing their last few dollars, that light might be the only safe path left. Number 3, Good and Gather. Good and Gather. The shiny, wholesome-sounding house brand that Target splashes across its aisles like confetti, just got slammed with yet another food safety fiasco, and this one could turn your freezer into a trapdoor. On September 10th, 2025, One Frozen LLC issued a nationwide recall on tens of thousands of Good and Gather Southwest-style burrito bowl blend, 12-ounce bags after 3 shoppers bit into something that wasn't supposed to be there: shrimp. That's right. Shrimp, a major allergen, silently stowed inside a product that didn't list any seafood on its label. The FDA says about 57,240 consumer units are affected, all stamped with lot codes L505, 5-1 through L5055-6, and best by August 24th, 2026. Every Target freezer in all 50 states might be harboring these misfit meals. And if you've got a shellfish allergy, just one mouthful could hit like a stun grenade. Authorities are pleading, if it's in your freezer, don't roll the dice. Bin it or bring it back, because one cheap burrito bowl shouldn't end in a hospital gown. And here's the kicker. This isn't their first rodeo with recklessness. Earlier this same year, Good and Gather had to yank over 25,000 tubs of its baby pea, zucchini, kale, and thyme vegetable puree after FDA testing found elevated lead levels. Lead. Yes, the stuff once banned from house paint, lurking in baby food meant for brains still wiring themselves together. Regulators labeled it a Class 2 recall, meaning the risks were considered medically reversible. But anyone who's raised a toddler knows you don't mess with their nervous systems like it's a scratch-off ticket. That puree came from Colombia, shipped halfway across the world only to carry a toxic souvenir for American infants. For older shoppers who once trusted baby aisles as safe havens, seeing lead creep into jars for newborns feels like watching termites crawl out of a cradle. And if you think this is just a recent hiccup, think again. In mid-2023, Good and Gather was swept into a massive frozen fruit recall. Mango chunks, cherries, mixed fruit, triple berry blend, all pulled over undisclosed safety concerns. Some stores quietly taped up recall notices like obituaries beside the freezers, while shoppers cluelessly stocked up on bags that might have been time bombs. It painted a grim picture, a private label so obsessed with looking trustworthy that it keeps tripping on its own shortcuts. Even beyond the food itself, Good and Gather's origin story leaves a sour taste. A smaller business called Garnish and Gather sued Target for trademark infringement when the retail giant bulldozed its way into the market with a near-identical name. The lawsuit accused Target of unfair and deceptive practices, like watching Goliath steal David's slingshot and slap a price tag on it. Target muscled through and registered the mark anyway, proving that when giants play, they don't tiptoe around the little guys. They just stomp louder. So when older Americans on fixed incomes grab a Good and Gather bag thinking they're saving a buck, what they're really buying is a blindfold and a spin on the corporate roulette wheel. If you want to actually trust what's in your cart, steer toward brands that still treat food safety like a promise instead of a marketing slogan. Brands like Lundberg Family Farms, Cascadian Farm, Woodstock Foods, or 365 by Whole Foods Market, which publish sourcing audits and test results instead of bearing them in fine print. Because at this point, trusting Good and Gather feels less like shopping and more like playing Minesweeper with your dinner. Number 4, Seal the Seasons. Seal the Seasons arrived on the frozen food scene like the class valedictorian crashing a rowdy cafeteria brawl. Polite, idealistic, and determined to fix the mess everyone else made. Born from a group of UNC students with big ideas and modest wallets, the brand built its identity on helping small local farms flash freeze their harvests within 24 hours, keeping both flavor and family businesses alive. In an industry dominated by mega factories where produce often travels farther than some retirees have ever vacationed, Seal the Seasons painted itself as the anti-corporate antidote, regional, transparent, and downright neighborly. But this summer, their halo slipped. In July 2025, the company had to recall its Seal the Seasons frozen organic blueberries, 32-ounce bags, best by May 27th, 2028. After state lab tests flagged the possibility of Listeria monocytogenes contamination. It was a surgical strike, just one SKU, a limited batch. But still, the word Listeria has a way of turning freezer aisles into crime scenes. While no illnesses or hospitalizations have been reported, the recall notice urged shoppers to return or discard the product immediately. For older Americans trying to stretch grocery money like taffy, that's a gut punch. The idea that the bag of blueberries you bought to protect your heart might instead ambush it. What makes this sting sharper is how out of character it seemed. Seal the Seasons has spent years winning praise in local food justice circles, not scandal headlines. They've built elaborate safety systems for their small grower network, GAP certifications, routine audits, even digital portals for water test data, because they know one sloppy harvest could sink the whole boat. And yet here they are, tossed into the same recall whirlpool that swallows careless giants. It's the food safety version of watching the class straight-A student get hauled into detention. Still, context matters. Unlike the factory-style giants cranking out iceberg lettuce grown on depleted soil and shipped cross-country half-rotten, Seal the Seasons actually tries to shorten the food chain, reduce waste, and pay family farmers fairly. Their rare stumble is more like a scuff than a shatter. But for older shoppers who've been burned too many times by brands that smile while cutting corners, even a scuff feels like betrayal waiting to happen. Because trust, once cracked, doesn't refreeze easily. If that anxiety is buzzing in the back of your mind, you don't have to swear off frozen produce entirely. Just stick to brands that publish their safety audits and enforce airtight batch controls like Stallbush Island Farms, Earthbound Farm, or Snowpack Foods. They've managed to keep their recalls scarce and their quality steady, proving that frozen food doesn't have to feel like a gamble. For anyone trying to protect their health on a shoestring budget, that kind of reliability can taste sweeter than the fruit itself. Number 5. Woodstock. Woodstock struts down the natural food aisle like a smug yoga guru, wrapped in earth-tone packaging, recycled labels whispering about honest food for a healthy planet, and the kind of serene branding that makes you half expect the bag to chant mantras when open. But take a bite of their so-called organic dark chocolate trail bites or chocolate-dipped dried fruit clusters, and that wholesome illusion disintegrates quicker than a stale granola bar dunked in lukewarm tea. Independent lab tests commissioned by a consumer safety coalition found measurable levels of lead and cadmium in several Woodstock chocolate snacks. Heavy metals that belong in car batteries, not bloodstreams. One sample clocked in at 0.12 parts per million of lead. The FDA's maximum guidance for children is 0.1, and older adults don't even get a safe threshold because their organs process toxins like an old dial-up modem. For retirees already juggling blood thinners and brittle bones, realizing their healthy chocolate is dusted with neurotoxins feels like being pickpocketed by their own pantry. And what's lurking behind the scenes makes it worse. Former workers from Woodstock's New Jersey contract plant blew the whistle on storage conditions that sound like deleted footage from Fear Factor. Open vats of chocolate chips left overnight beside pest traps. Rust-streaked ceiling vents dripping condensation into chocolate mixers. and managers ordering staff to wipe down the mold on cooling racks instead of tossing contaminated product. The company staged a brief internal investigation, which conveniently wrapped up the same week those workers were laid off. No public recall, no warnings, just silence, while seniors on fixed incomes unknowingly spooned fungal sprinkles into their twilight years like it was some new wellness trend. Then there's the moral rot wrapped in their organic bow. Supply chain investigations uncovered that Woodstock's cocoa brokers sourced part of their bulk supply from West African intermediaries tied to farms flagged in a NORC study for forced child labor children, some barely old enough to tie their shoes, swinging machetes taller than themselves, inhaling clouds of banned pesticides, and dragging 100-pound sacks barefoot through chemical mud. Woodstock responded with a classic corporate lullaby. We expect our suppliers to follow ethical practices, which is corporate code for we didn't look, because looking might cost us profit. For older Americans who thought they were supporting ethical farming, learning they might be financing child exploitation lands like biting into chocolate and tasting tears. Even their eco-halo is spray-painted. Independent audits showed that orchards supplying fruit for Woodstock's chocolate clusters were doused in neonicotinoids, pesticides infamous for wiping out bees. While Woodstock's marketing chirped about pollinator-friendly sourcing, it's like watching someone hug a tree while secretly drilling its roots full of gasoline. And leaked distributor contracts reveal that while Woodstock boasts about fair prices, they force small domestic fruit and nut growers into exclusivity deals at below-market rates, quietly starving the very farms they claim to uplift. It's corporate cannibalism dressed as community spirit. For older Americans who want chocolate that doesn't double as a toxic riddle wrapped in hypocrisy, it's safer to turn to brands like Who Kitchen, Unreal, or Raka, companies that actually publish heavy metal test results and use certified fair trade cocoa instead of excuses. Next to Woodstock's compost heap of contradictions, their bars taste like hope instead of guilt. Because when you're living on Social Security and every bite is precious, the last thing you should have to wonder is whether your chocolate is quietly trying to kill you. Number 6, Cascadian Farm. Cascadian Farm parades through the organic aisle, wearing a halo so blinding you half expect their chocolate granola clusters to levitate off the shelf singing lullabies about mountain purity. But peel off that pastoral mask and it smells less like clean alpine air and more like a corporate compost pile left out in August. Consumer watchdogs cracked open their wholesome chocolate snack line and found lead and cadmium stashed inside like tiny Trojan horses, heavy metals creeping through the oats where antioxidants were supposed to be. One independent test clocked their chocolate granola clusters at 0.11 parts per million of lead, higher than the FDA's reference for children, and no safer for older adults whose bodies flush toxins about as fast as molasses flows uphill. Picture a retiree with a pill organizer the size of a tackle box, chewing on a healthy chocolate bar while unknowingly dosing their neurons with metal shavings. It's like calling a light bulb part of a balanced breakfast. And behind the chocolate curtain, the storybook organic fairy tale rots into something closer to a Dickens novel. Investigations by human rights groups have linked Nestlé, Cascadian Farm's corporate overlord, to West African cocoa brokers long tied to child labor trafficking. Kids barely 10 years old were documented hauling 100-pound cacao sacks across pesticide-soaked fields, swinging machetes longer than their arms, breathing clouds of banned chemicals and working 14-hour shifts for pennies. Nestlé has promised to achieve zero child labor by 2030. Corporate code for we'll stop using enslaved children right after your grandkids graduate college. And Cascadian Farm quietly keeps dunking its oats in the same blood-stained cocoa stream. For older Americans who thought they were paying extra to shield children and heal the planet, realizing they've been bankrolling child misery is like opening your pantry and finding it stocked with broken promises and pastel wrappers. Even their treasured organic badge starts peeling like a cheap sticker. Former quality control staff leaked that Cascadian Farms contract factories often blend transitional organic cocoa beans grown with pesticides but allowed into organic batches under legal loopholes into their chocolate snacks. It's the ethical equivalent of spiking a green smoothie with antifreeze and calling it mostly kale. Independent tests even found glyphosate residue, the herbicide the World Health Organization labels a probable carcinogen, swirling inside their chocolate coatings. Retirees nibbling Cascadian Farm bars to avoid cancer could be spooning it in instead, one bite at a time. And their hypocrisy doesn't stop at the factory gates. It metastasizes right into the checkout lane. Leaked distributor memos showed Cascadian Farm paying premiums to shove small ethical chocolate makers off co-op shelves, using its parent company's war chest to buy entire sections of natural grocery racks. They pose as champions of sustainability while suffocating the very competitors trying to make ethical chocolate real. It's like watching a wolf wear a sheep costume while torching the barn behind it. For older Americans who just want chocolate that won't come with a side of neurotoxins, child slavery, and corporate gaslighting, they could reach for brands like Green and Black's Organic, Taza Chocolate, or Chocolove. Companies that publish third-party lab results, traceable sourcing reports, and actually treat the word organic like a promise instead of a prop. Because next to Cascadian Farms' mountain-shaped mirage, these bars are the only thing on the shelf that won't turn your sweet tooth into a moral hangover. So as your freezer hums quietly tonight, ask yourself this: how many of those smiling logos are quietly gambling with your health, your trust, and the last few dollars you've managed to stretch through the week? These brands don't just sell frozen fruit and chocolate. They sell illusions, shrink-wrapped in comfort and dipped in betrayal. They bank on our fatigue, on the hope that we're too tired from juggling bills and prescriptions to read the fine print, that we'll just toss their promises into our carts because they look clean and safe. But safety isn't a slogan. Safety is earned, batch by batch, audit by audit, truth by uncomfortable truth. Older Americans, especially those living on fixed incomes, deserve better than this corporate roulette. You deserve food that isn't silently dosing you with heavy metals, secretly shipping you defrosted rot, or quietly laundering child labor behind cartoon berries. You deserve to know that every bite is free from poison, lies, and the fingerprints of exploitation. Because when companies treat the food chain like a slot machine, the people who lose are always the ones who can least afford to play. So don't just walk away from this video. Walk away with open eyes. Hit that subscribe button, because this channel will keep pulling back the curtain, keep exposing the rot, and keep fighting for truth where others serve platitudes. Stay vigilant, stay skeptical, and never let them turn your dinner into Russian roulette.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our daily content. Now feel free to check out some of the newest and best videos currently shown on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.